Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, where we connect the wisdom and experience of ministry leaders to the realities of ministry in the trenches. We journey with ministry leaders through all the hidden aspects that help us to become fruitful ministers. Here at the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, we discuss the stuff that no one told you about Catholic ministry and strive to help ministry leaders succeed from the beginning. Our hosts are Christy Cabanis, the Director for Missionary Discipleship for the Diocese of Cleveland, and Sarah Jarzembowski, the Director for Marriage and Family Life at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish in Crofton, Maryland. Please show your support for our efforts by clicking like and subscribe and commenting below. And now here are Sarah and Christy.
We can't just mess around all day.
We're just messing around for
talking about favorite pen and notepads and
stuff we shouldn't talk about.
Of our swag.
But we're pen ready. We're pen ready.
Here's my esteem pen.
There you go. Let's get all of our esteem.
I'm all set. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast. We've been chit-chatting behind the scenes for the last half hour because we just have a whole lot of fun with Nicole Perone. So yeah, we are in a little bit of a wacky, fun state right now, but welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, where we talk about all those things that nobody ever told you about ministry. And this season we are talking about mentorship, and we have invited Nicole to join us. And let me share a little bit with you about Nicole. I've known Nicole for a while. I feel like I've known her forever, but I still have to look at her bio because she is just amazing. And there's so much awesomeness here that I just feel the need to read to you. So let me grab my piece of paper. Nicole Perone is the National Coordinator for ESTEAM, the faith-based leadership formation program for Roman Catholic students at colleges and universities across the United States. ESTEAM prepares young adults for the transition from campus ministry to parish life and to engage their temporal gifts as leaders in their faith communities. Nicole holds a Master's of Divinity from Yale University. Her Bachelor's of Arts in Theology with a double minor in Italian and Catholic Studies was bestowed by Loyola University in Maryland. Whoop, whoop. Where she graduated summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa. Woohoo! I didn't know that. It's a lot I don't know about you, Nicole.
Every day we learn something new about each other.
We do. Like our favorite pens are the same, and I love it. Anyway, moving on. Don't digress, Sarah. Nicole is also an adjunct professor of Catholic Studies at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. She has served on a number of boards and advisory bodies and currently sits on the executive board of the Catholic Campus Ministry Association. In 2018, Nicole was a delegate. Sorry, let me get some more coffee.
Friday.
It is Friday. Nicole was a delegate to the pre-synod on young people, the faith and vocational discernment, and served on the writing committee for the final document. Her work has been published by America Media, Catholic News Service, the Jesuit Post, National Catholic Reporter, and U.S. Catholic. I think that's where we met when you were doing synod stuff, right?
Oh yeah, that's where where it
all started.
The Jarzembowski reputation preceded you, but that is where, yes.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I have lived up to that.
You've exceeded it.
You're awesome. Nicole lives in Milford, Connecticut with her husband, John, who is also awesome. He's the communications consultant and digital editor for the National Catholic Reporter. Woohoo, so proud of him. And their daughter, Rosie, and their golden retriever, Ellie. So you guys are just so amazing. I'm so glad that you're here. Christy and I were chit-chatting about mentorship, and I'm like, we need to talk to Nicole. It has been way too long since she's been on our podcast, probably season 1.
Oh my gosh. Is that real?
I think it was.
But didn't we have you back in season 2?
I will listen. I'll come back 150 times.
I mean, it's just been way too long.
Here. I mean,
is it a 3-peat? Okay, it's just been way too long.
Am I a 3-peat?
Yeah.
I should get you a special jacket or something.
Oh, yeah. I want an SNL. Yeah, I want like the SNL like 5-time host. Like I need that.
Yeah.
I got a pen for you.
Don't
There we
tempt me
go.
with a good time.
Don't. Oh, you guys, look at that. I have the same one.
Right?
See?
We have
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
What did I
Don't
do,
worry, I
sweetie?
just have 6 pens available just in
There you
case
go.
we go this route.
Oh,
Ready. She's ready. She's ready.
Funny.
All right.
Guys,
Well,
we literally had a half-hour conversation about our
yeah, I was
favorite
gonna say,
things, but
put the
anyway,
pens down, ladies.
we
We're gonna
did-
talk
we
about
did.
mentorship.
people are
Nicole's
gonna be
our
like,
girl.
what is going on today? Like, seriously, this is my favorite morning. Take it away, take it away. Oh my gosh,
What's my name?
you're wait a
Nicole,
minute,
Christy,
it
anybody
just
who
gave me
wants
a
to fill the
loud-
silence.
So you're Christy, you're Nicole. My watch just gave me a loud environment warning.
Duh.
Sorry, people listening.
Loud environment. Sorry, guys.
I'm gonna
We
bring it down a little bit.
Every day of my life.
We're
Every day
gonna
of my life.
take it easy now.
As
We're gonna
we
calm
talk
down.
about
We're gonna
men.
talk about worky things. And so in that vein, Nicole,
Is this NPR now? We're just
tell us-
You're listening to NPR
Tell us-
with Christy and
tell
Sarah.
us about what makes a good mentor, Nicole.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It truly, this podcast is so fun. We have a rip roaring good time on this show. we
That's
really
our job.
do. But this is the energy we want to have, right? When we're talking about ministry, when we're talking about all of these topics, because you guys cover such big topics, and it's easy to treat it like the big scary things that they are, but you guys make it fun, and that's beautiful. Like if your work in your ministry isn't joyful and fun, you're in the wrong line of work. Like find the next thing, you know. Get discerned and get moving, but like this is the energy you want to have, right? So
Yes.
I love being with you. I love being with you. I love talking about mentorship. So just some context for listeners who might not be super familiar with the machinations of Esteem. When Esteem was founded 15 years ago, mentorship was a cornerstone of the experience. So one of our co-founders, Jeff Bozzi, who was a longtime vice president at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, and had this extraordinary financial career, also was a founder of Mentor, which is a national organization for mentorship. And we know that the for-profit sector has been about a 50-year clip ahead of the Catholic Church on a couple of things, but including but not limited to mentorship. And so when you're in the for-profit sector, when you work for these consulting companies or financial companies, they often have mentorship built in. So he brought that wisdom to bear for Esteem. So when Esteem was founded and they were saying, how are we preparing young leaders in this Catholic context? They made a priority of mentorship and said, let's not just have young adults go through a program, which is good in and of itself, but pair them with mentors in the local community who are in their fields of interest so that you start building those natural lines of connection between, I'm majoring in X and this person's career involves X. And so isn't that great that they can talk to me about being a faithful insert career here, which is great. And it's super helpful because Esteem focuses on young leaders who are not going to go into ministry, right? The likelihood that these young adults are going to graduate from college and go into ministry isn't super high, right? It's whoever's called to it. They're probably going to go be faithful accountants or educators or engineers or whatever. And so how are we helping them and equipping them and empowering them to understand that you can be faithful and be an accountant and faithful and be an engineer and so on? So mentorship became a critical component of that. So when we think about what makes a good mentor, I point right to Pope Francis. Pope Francis gives us a roadmap for so many things and so much of his writing and his speaking and just the whole ethos of his papacy. But in Christus Vivit, the document that followed the Synod on Young People, paragraph 246, he spells out what it means to be a great mentor. And so when in doubt, I'm like, we got a solid paragraph, the Holy Father, highlighted, written by young people at the pre-synod that he just completely pulled. And so it spells it out really easily, right? And so I don't think we have to look too far to get the answers from that. And I have it here in front of me just to highlight a few things. I think what Pope Francis does a great job of saying in this is that you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to be at the pinnacle of anything to be a good mentor. It's not about your success. It's about your willingness to accompany somebody else. And so, a good mentor has that sort of self-awareness, right, of their limits, knows the joys and sorrows of life and the spiritual journey and the vocational journey, are not afraid to admit that they make mistakes, but to sort of share what they learned and let their life be one component of the roadmap, and just contribute to all of the tools in the toolkit, right? I'm a big believer in sort of the analogy of the toolkit, but everything is tools in the toolkit. So you don't need a screwdriver for every task. You don't need a hammer for every task, even though I'm from Jersey and it feels like that would be the easiest. Hammer things home, right? But we know that we get it. So the idea that everything is a tool and there's tools for the right time. And so mentors just sort of add their own tools to the toolkit, saying, I've learned these things, I've been down some component of this road, and that is really helpful. And so a mentor, just has the capacity to walk alongside a company, be an active participant, not direct, but share and go on the journey like Emmaus, even if it's in the wrong direction. So I highly recommend taking a look at paragraph 246 because I think it spells it out really beautifully. And even though that's for spiritual mentorship of young people, I think there's some just inherent truths that go across the board for all of us, because at every age and stage, we need to be mentored.
Yeah, I totally agree. So outside of some program like Esteem, because like if I'm a grown up and graduated from a Catholic university or college, and I need to find a mentor, do you have thoughts on where a person can find mentors, Nicole?
Yeah. So it's always trickier in adulthood, right? Because when we're in collegiate settings or like sort of formal structural settings like grad school maybe, or even formal programs like in the for-profit sector, they have these sort of pipelines naturally built in. And so if you're just a working person out in the world, it's kind of hard, just stand on your front lawn and holler, I need a mentor, and someone will just appear and, like the bat signal, they're just going to come out of the sky. And of course, not every personality lends itself to like actively seeking a mentor. My introverts, I can't relate, but I love you. I'm not one, but I hear you out there in the world, that not everybody's going to just like go hoof it and approach somebody. But that is sort of I think a natural place to start. When I was in grad school, we had this requirement of supervised ministry, right? So you had to do a supervised ministry during the academic year, and they had all these options, all these sort of congregations or organizations or whatever that you could be paired with. And I met this woman that I really loved, and I was like, I don't want to do what you do. I don't want your job. I desperately know that I am not called to that, but like, you're who I want to hang out with. I want to like follow you around and figure out what I can learn from you. And so I did that for a year. She was a campus minister in all boys high school. I was neither called to campus ministry nor an all boys high school. Just let's put that caveat there. That was not for me. It was for someone, but it wasn't for me. But I just kind of I figured out Gail Bellucci was just really cool. And she had this fascinating journey. And I was like, okay, so I kind of want to be mentored by you. Is it okay if we just do that in this context? And she was like, yeah. So I think really that discernment of who do you want to be around and learn from, like who are people or what are qualities that people possess that you want to glom onto, that you want to just like soak that up. So that first step of discernment of like, what am I looking for and who am I looking for? It's kind of like dating, right? You're like, I got to figure those things out and then I can take the next step. And then you can look to places like your local Catholic community, right? Your parish, or if you're a part of community organizations and groups, those are great places to start. Also calling someone you can trust and asking them who might be a good mentoring connection. I think ministry is very heavy on network and relationship. I know you guys have unpacked that before. And so the idea that like someone's going to know the right person, it's just a matter of figuring that out. So kind of getting on the horn, calling, emailing, messaging, and just saying like, I'm looking for a mentor, anyone you can recommend, because someone's going to know somebody, someone's going to be the friend of a friend of a friend to get you there. I think that can be super helpful. I think a lot about the Jarzembowskis, for example. Like I said, their reputations preceded them when I was young and just starting out. But I think you and Paul are both great at sort of this network and saying like, here's the vast expanse of our network. Like, what are you looking for? What are you kind of trying to do? And so I think of those kind of relationships, just reaching out to people and saying like, I'm looking for a mentor. I'm in flux in my ministry, my job, or just like in my life stage. Maybe, I'm turning into the next decade, or I'm not just at this pivot point. So like trying to discern what's next. And so maybe that's just the very Jesuit educated in me, but always looking for who's going to walk with you in that sort of everyday life experience. So I think those are great places to start, but really the previous starting point has to be that understanding of what common ground or what sort of qualities you're looking for in a mentor. Because it might be a case where I want to pivot in my career, in my field of expertise or interest. Then you want somebody who's there already or who has done that. Or it might be, maybe I'm getting older and the kids have all left. And so I'm trying to like discern what's next. And so I just kind of want someone to walk with me into that stage of life. So then you want someone who's done that, right? So you need to kind of identify what the critical components are in terms of what's going to define this mentoring journey for you, because mentoring relationships change. Different mentors come into your life for different purposes. So I think that personal clarity is an important starting point.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because to me, it frees up when you're looking for like a particular kind of a person that you want to be like, and not always like, it doesn't always have to be just strictly what career am I in or vocation, and like to look at it that way. So in that way, like, you guys can both be mentors to me because I want to be cool like you and have great pens, but
yeah.
Well,
I want to be like you guys, but I'm never going to grow up. So I can't say when I grow up, but just like in my life, eventually I would like to be like you. It's a lofty goal.
Yeah, exactly. I love that for us. Do you think that there's a difference between spiritual direction and mentorship?
Yes. Say boundaries are so important. We love boundaries. We love defining healthy roles. We're all about this. I do think sometimes people conflate all of the purposes of those different, like having a spiritual director or a mentor or a counselor, or any sort of behavioral health, mental health specialist. Those are all different roles. And in ministry, we blur those lines a lot because sometimes people have multiple qualifications, right? For example, my husband's longtime, wonderful, incredible spiritual director also had behavioral health training. And so she brought that skill to the table, but that wasn't why she was at that table. Like she still had that skill set, but that wasn't what she was there to do. That's super common for us, right? Like we wear multiple hats. And so it's easy to be like, oh, well, I'm going to talk about this thing with my spiritual director who's also my mentor. And it's like, no, bad. We don't blur lines here. That's not a good practice because we do it everywhere in church life. So let's all try to emulate what we advocate here. So the sense that you might have a spiritual director who's like trained in spiritual direction, right? That's the goal. If you have a spiritual director, they should be professionally trained. There's many great ways to find a spiritual director, asterisk, other episode, other time, right? That person serves that particular purpose, right? And a spiritual director is really like asking you the questions of where God is in your life and where God's moving in these things, right? That's like a whole separate bucket. A mentor, I guess if I had to define it, would be more like an experienced, trusted advisor and guide who's accompanying you on the journey. But the power relationship there, I do think, is different. In all of those, there is a little bit of a power imbalance, right? I think we have to add that qualifier. Like there is a power differential with a spiritual director or mentor, and definitely with a counselor or mental and behavioral health specialist. But I think understanding the parameters of each of those is really important, because when you go to a mentor, you want to both be on the same page and approach them with like, here's what we're trying to do here, right? Like let's set these boundaries together of like, here's where I am in my life and I want to be accompanied, in these particular ways. And so here's how I'm inviting you to that with me, versus a spiritual director, again, where there are qualifications and parameters and goals of that relationship, or counselor where there are qualifications and goals of that relationship. Of course, like a mentoring relationship also, like let's just sprinkle some extra Catholic on it, exists in the external form, right? It's not a confessor. If you don't know what a confessor is, another conversation, another time, right? Like, but setting those healthy boundaries of like, it exists in the external forum. They're not bound by confidentiality in the same way as a spiritual director might be, or a counselor might be, or a confessor might be. There needs to be an external forum quality, like for the healthy relationship, right? For the ability to flourish. And also for them to be able to like be the best mentor possible and you to be mentored in the best way possible. So I think just like having an understanding of all of those buckets, and then also being discerning as a person, like, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
You know, really understanding, like, do I need spiritual direction? Do I need a good therapist? Like, that's good. You should follow that feeling if that's something you need, right? I have a spiritual director and I have a therapist and I have many mentors, and all of these people, all who happen to be women, just like enrich my life, right? And but we know their roles. We know their roles, and we stay in the lanes that we need to stay in, and it helps us to flourish, right? It's kind of like you have a dentist, you have your OBGYN if you're a woman, you have your primary care physician, you have your optometrist, you have all the doctors who have their specialties and they like do their jobs, but they stay in their lane, right? Your dentist shouldn't really, be talking to you in great detail about your kidneys. That's not like, let's just stay in our lanes, right? Let's do our thing. And then the body flourishes, the body's healthy.
Yeah. But I was going to say, though, in that same vein, Nicole, your dentist might tell you, because of your plaque buildup, like, you should probably go see a cardiologist because,
Right.
like, those things are related. So they know. The other thing is, these specialists know about the other specialists and should also properly refer you.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking too, when we're thinking about the multiple hats, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here at all, but I do think that something that I want to say on this podcast right now, and I'm going to start saying it to people regularly, is just because someone asks you a question does not mean that you have to answer it. You know what I mean? Because because I think that that's what happens is you get asked a question and then you step into a role that isn't yours, that you aren't the expert at. And there's something in the back of your mind that's niggling, that's going, you know what, kiddo, we shouldn't be answering that. We should be redirecting. And sometimes it's a pride thing and sometimes it's something else. But I think just because someone asks you doesn't mean that that's yours to answer. So be willing to also share that wealth.
And we do that in ministry all the time, right? Because like in ministry, we're kind of forced in these roles where you're all things to all people.
Yeah.
Even though we can't be all things to all people, because then you're nothing to nobody. Like that's the only one qualified to do that is Jesus. Like I'm super unqualified in that regard. But we do that, right? Because like someone approaches you, or you might be in one of those roles we just talked about, and it like the lines are easy to blur. Especially if you have any expertise in one of those other roles. And so like, again, I point to my husband's former spiritual director because she was a wonderful woman, but she knew what her job was as spiritual director. And so she did have that other area of expertise where she could be like, I just want you to pay attention to this, but like, I want you to pay attention to this and then follow up with someone else in this thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to switch into that. But like you said, I'm noticing this, so you should probably go speak to a specialist about this. Like we can draw the dotted line without being like, and now I'm going to put on my other specialist hat, because that's like any good relationship flourishes in the boundaries, right? Like boundaries are healthy things that free us to really flourish where we are. And so if we don't have those healthy boundaries, like things get crazy, things get wild, we overstep lines we don't even know we're there. Versus when we're given good parameters of like, this is what we're trying to do, like what can happen in that space is so beautiful because you feel free.
Yes, 100%. I love that.
One of the things that I talk to my parents about, we do family ministry, family formation. So the parents are doing a lot of the formation of their kids. And what I hear frequently is, but I don't know enough. Right. I don't know enough. And I'm pointing to my head. They think that it's all about brain knowledge.
Right.
And I talk to them about the heart knowledge and the knowing Jesus as a friend, knowing that he exists and he's real, and sharing that with their kids. And I say, if they ever ask you a question you don't know the answer to, say, I don't know, let's learn together. And contact me. You know what I mean? Like, ask the question. We should always be learning. God is constantly revealing himself to us in new ways, in ways that are relevant to our lives now. Right. So it's okay to say, I don't know, or I'm not sure. This is what I think, but let's double check, let's ask Miss Sarah that question. So let's keep learning. And I think that our mentors and our spiritual directors and our therapists and, all of these people have something to have a way to reveal God to us
Yeah,
through different lenses. And I'm
absolutely.
about, Christy.
Absolutely.
No, I'm 100%, I'm on board with that. I love that. I think a question that I have on the list, Nicole, is how often, because I mean, you with Esteem, you are specifically setting up these mentor relationships, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what that is about. So how often should people meet with the mentor?
Well, we do set it up with some sense of structure and esteem, but I do think it translates outside because my answer is always it depends, which I'm sure irks my site leaders in their souls because my answer to a lot of things is it depends. And they're like, no, just like plant your flag somewhere, girl. I'm like, but life is in the it depends, right? Like that's so
Yeah.
much as it depends. But I do think every mentoring relationship is different, right? So you kind of have to read the room, you kind of have to read the relationship of what's going to make the most sense. What applies to students who are on, on a programmatic track with sort of an academic calendar and some goals and parameters is so different than like I'm a working adult human, like with all these other factors in my life. And so I can't really be like X number of times per semester because that just doesn't translate. But I mean, even when I think about the mentors in my life who are still present in my life, like our lives have changed and, have ebbs and flows. And so we have to shift too, fundamentally. I mean, I have a mentor who's been part of my life ever since I was in Esteem. She was my Esteem mentor when I was in grad school, and that relationship has just continued ever since. And she's very special. And there she is over my shoulder. There she is. We met up recently for the first time in person in like, honest to God, probably since like February. I was like racking my brain driving to go meet up with her. I'm like, when was the last time we were physically in person together? But like her life has taken, a whole other like journey and direction, which is great. And then also, small factor, small human in my life who, changes everything about my ability to do things and go places. But like, these things happen. And so we're in phone relationship, right? We're texting about a million things and nothing, and we're messaging on Instagram, and that's just sometimes how it is, right? So there are general best practices in terms of like if you're trying to get off the ground with a mentoring relationship, setting some sort of schedule, agreeing like, hey, Sarah, I really want, I would love for you to be my mentor. I'd love to like have these kind of conversations with you. Would you be willing to like meet a couple times in the next few months? Like maybe like once a month or every other month, could we like find a way to make that work and figure it out together in those initial days? Because it kind of, like any relationship, you gotta set some consistency, and then you have the flexibility to like change it up. But I think that shared accountability of like, we're going to try and do it once a month, or we're going to try and do it every other month, or we might meet in person every other month, but we're going to email or text or whatever we do, I think helps get it off the ground, which is the first step. And if it's someone that you can meet in person with and tether it to something else, I think is nice. So if you're in a ministry setting and maybe want to go to mass together or meet up after mass for coffee or breakfast or whatever, or if you're in the same faith community and are doing like small church communities, so you want to use that as some of the scaffolding for your relationship, like we're talking about the readings or something, like you can lean on structures that already exist to get a mentoring relationship off the ground if you're not the hardest extrovert on the Myers-Briggs that ever existed. I'm like, I can think of 47 things for us to talk about right out of the gate, like not even having to try that hard. But if you're like, where do I kind of go? You can lean on some of those things that already exist. And then, of course, the virtual realm exists. We're doing this over Zoom right now for our listeners at home. You can meet virtually with someone
Yes.
that you think is great, and you just want to have this kind of relationship, but they live in California and you live in Connecticut. Like, great, the year of our Lord 2024, we have the technology, like just you can do that too. But I do think in terms of sort of regularity and stuff, it does start from that initial discernment of what am I trying to get out of this? Like, what's the goal here? Is it just like to make a new friend? Because if it is, that's cool, but that's a very different goal than like, I want to, learn from this person and benefit from their wisdom as I'm exploring these other questions. Because then if you have some goals, you could say like, okay, this thing is happening in my life, so I'm shooting toward this goal. So we're going to plan accordingly, right? We're going to count backwards from that. Or I'm trying to pivot in my career, so I do have a sense of timeline for that. So I want to meet once a month because we're reaching this goal or whatever. it's kind of striking that balance based on where you're starting from and where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Long
Yeah.
answer, short question, right?
I love that though. No, it makes
I'm
sense.
the,
And
I'm the
I
queen of a
think
long answer.
that ebb and flow too, like timelines, but also I think like the intensity of which something that you want to learn or grow in, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, I need to know this now. So I need to be meeting with you like every other week versus I just want to learn from you as we can. So monthly or every other month or something, quarterly, something like that would make more sense. So that's fantastic. You pointed to your friend over your shoulder who you've known for a long time, and the other way. Yeah, there you
There
are.
we go.
Uh, it's how, like, do you still feel like that's a mentorship relationship, or has it moved into something more like friendship? So like, how do you kind of know when mentorship is over, other than like when it's in that specific, like, oh, I'm doing this for a particular project or type of learning, you know what I mean, associated with that. Like, if it's just in your standard adult life, how do you know?
Yeah,
Like,
that's so tricky. I think it has to start from knowing yourself first, right? So
mm,
sort of having your own understanding of like, A, what you're trying to accomplish with the mentoring relationship, but B, knowing yourself enough to know like if we're getting together and like we're getting together for a glass of wine and we're just talking about like life or whatever, like, and you feel it shifting into that friendship, which is great. Like you can have friends. Friends are a beautiful thing to have. And love and relationship are not finite. There's not a finite amount. You can never have too many friends. You can never have too much love in your life. So like that's cool if that's where it's going, but it's that sort of like your own internal barometer of like, oh, I feel like we've shifted, right? And
mm,
definitely, so the person in question, her name is Carrie Robinson. She's the CEO of Catholic Charities USA. So she got a little busy in the last year or so, a little busy, a lot of stuff going on with that job. But when I think about our relationship, and I feel confident sharing this because I think she would corroborate it. It started in the Esteem experience, right? And so, which was beautiful. I was in grad school trying to figure out like, what am I doing with this ministry thing? Like, I'm here, but I have no other answers and no other direction. And she was a great person to just be around to cheerlead and champion and like help me grapple with the big questions, and really committed to me building my network. Like I said, ministry is so much of that. So she was like, who do you want to talk to? Like, who in my life can I share with you that will help answer questions I don't know how to answer for you? Like that sense of like, I don't know this, but who would be great for you to talk to? This person. And I will build that bridge and make that connection. So like that year was awesome, but then we just sort of continued the relationship organically because I was still in grad school, still figuring this out. I am still figuring it out to this day. I have no answers, only more questions as I get older. You learn in your 20s you had all the answers, and then your 30s I'm like, I don't know anything about anything. Like I don't know
and then
anything
it's
about.
fine. I think that in the 30s, it's also, and that's fine.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
reach like the
And then in the
peak with that.
40s, it's like, who cares?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I hear is like it only gets better, by the way. Everyone's like, you think your 30s are great. Let me tell you what's coming for you, like better and better. And I'm like, this is life should get better and better, right? If those were the best X number of years of your life, like that's sad. The best
Just
is yet to
wait.
come.
Just
But
wait.
she was great in that way of like
Mhm.
still continuing mentoring relationship, but definitely over time we became friends, right? We developed a close relationship, and I consider her a friend. She's a friend of our family for sure, and that's a beautiful gift. But we are able to sort of like click into that. Like there are definitely times I've texted her and been like, I need the mentoring hat right now. Like we're not going to talk about like
Yeah.
silly, I'm not going to send you a silly rosy picture. I mean, I can, like rosy content is good content, but like I need this is what I need.
Yeah.
And she's
Mhm.
so great and gracious about being like, yeah, like let's do that. And so sometimes I think there are times that the mentoring relationship kind of comes to an end organically, not in like a I don't need you anymore way, but just sort of like it evolves, right? In
Yeah.
adulthood. I think about Gail Bellucci, right? Who was that example I gave when I was in grad school. She moved on from that job into different, and our ministries overlapped, which was so cool. And like, what a grace and gift it is when like someone you admire that much, you now get to like work with them. You're like, oh, this is the best.
So
It's just
cool.
so fun. And then like now she's retired and like in totally a different state of her life, and my ministry's gone a different direction. Like over time, like the way the story just grew was that we became friends. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a hard ending. like, oh, the mentoring connection has now ended. Please exit this way, stand clear of the closing doors. It wasn't quite like that. But just I think again, that self-awareness, that sense of your own internal barometer of like, that's just not where we are anymore. And so you could reach that period in a mentoring relationship, right? If you reach out to someone that you don't have that kind of friendship with, and you're like, Christy, I would really love for you to mentor me as I'm kind of figuring this thing out in my life, in my ministry. Like, so you have a goal.
Right.
That person probably would appreciate some of those parameters too, right? We're all busy. So to be like, yeah, I would love to meet with you over Zoom the next 6 months. And we're like all on the same page that this is the only commitment we're making to each other.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are busy and appreciate that sort of candor. And so being able to be like, it's okay, this ran its course, that's beautiful. But like, as long as you're ending on a positive note with one another, like it's good. It's not like a breakup. It's just this. We were on this road together. Now I took this exit, you took that exit. That's great. But you get to kind of keep the door open for relationship, I think is important as you discern that ending. Is like, this has come to an end in this form, and our relationship will grow in a different way. And it might just be that we have like fond memories of this time together. We're friends on Facebook, like, it's good. Or it might be years later, you come back and are like, oh, who would just like really benefit this moment in my life? I'm going to call this person and like rekindle that particular role, rekindle like putting the skin on that relationship. So I think it can ebb and flow. Everything goes back to personal discernment. I'm Jesuit educated as heck in here. Like, talk about ruined for life. That's who we are.
It's so wonderful. You gave me the privilege to sit with Gail and Carrie at your wedding.
Yeah.
And I've never
That was like my dream table, like
Oh my
high key. You're
goodness.
like, at your wedding, you're like, where would I sit if I had to like sit somewhere?
Wow.
And there is like your childhood best friends, absolutely 100%. But also John and I were like, we want to sit at that table. They're having a lot of fun. Like,
we did have a lot of fun.
You guys
we
were like
really did. It
so
was
great.
really great. The bishop was at our table and everything.
a bunch of cuties, right? It was like a joke though at our wedding. It was like a bishop, it was nuns, it was priests, it was lay couples. It was like whoever walks into the bar, like, was all at that table.
Oh yeah. And we were at the back close to the bar and the
good spot.
The cigar making table. You had like, they were making cigars, weren't they? Whatever.
Yeah, they were rolling cigars. Yeah.
Your wedding is one of the tops on my list. Fresh mozzarella, sitting at the table. Anyway, Gail and Carrie, I have never felt more engaged by two women who I know have done great things in our church. Like, I stand on their shoulders doing what I do. And I sat between them, and Gail was on my left, and we talked all about things, and she just kept asking me great questions. And sometimes you start talking, but you don't have an end in mind.
Yeah.
And I found myself at least 2 occasions at that table answering a question and people looking at me, waiting for my answer to finish because they were so engaged, and thinking in the middle of that, oh crap, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea where
That's
this
like
is
Michael
going
Scott.
or what.
Sometimes I start a sentence and I have no idea where it's going.
I have no idea where it's going. I had no idea where it was going. And and Carrie would just look at me and go, you know what? I just find this such a fascinating conversation. Sure. Tell me more about. And I was just like,
quality, like making you feel like you're the only person on the planet, like not just exactly on the planet.
Yeah.
It's
she's
so
like,
nice.
Yeah. And I've never really felt like these are 2 important people. And I know that they were very important. And even Bishop asked me a question, and I just felt like I was important to them at that table. And that's a special gift of a mentor as well, is to really block out everything else and to be fully engaged in the person in front of them and speaking in front of them. And those people at that table really had that gift and that power. I mean, how many years later? I don't remember. I remember the date, but I don't remember the year.
So for our listeners, John got married on Sarah's birthday. So
I remember the date.
our marriage and Sarah are just inextricably linked. Like we will always remember when Sarah's birthday is, and like our prayers in our marriage are always tied to Sarah now too. We're like, and for Sarah during dusk. Like we just, you gotta. It's beautiful. Like, listen, everything is
my
graced,
birthday
right?
gift that year.
Everything is graced, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, but it was just a really powerful thing, and realizing what it feels like to be important to someone in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, and
which is like such an important quality of a good mentor, like whether it's spiritual or in other areas. Like I could talk about Gail and Carrie, by the way, for 6 more hours. Like
maybe
please listen to the after show for that one. That's another conversation. But I do think like I have just treasured them so much in the moment in my life that I met them, but especially Sarah, you just hit the nail on the head that they have always made me feel like it was never a bother. You know what I mean? Like when you have these questions, or like when you're just in that relationship and you see these people who are so important and doing such good work and are just like incredible, gifted, thoughtful, like beloved humans, where you're like, you join the chorus of people who love them and the list is so long, and you're like, but you start that like light imposter syndrome, right? Like little old me, like you want to spend time with me, you want to hang out, like, and even to this day, sometimes with these relationship with these women that I have, there's that part of me that's like, I want to text her. She's so busy, you know, like she's got so many other things to worry about. And every single time, like, honestly, marry someone great who is your voice of reason, right? Like who will be like, I love you, but that's ridiculous. Like that's a good quality partner. John will be like, but isn't she your mentor? Like we'll literally just ask the question, be like, you have this thing that's on your heart. Don't you think she wants to talk to you about it? Like he presents the absurdity of my hesitation, right? Like which is such a gift. Like truly, like marry someone who does that, who like lovingly presents the absurdity of what you're saying, and like doesn't make you feel bad, but it's just like you hear that, right? And think about everyone's like, think about your spouse for a second. That's their job. But like, you know what I mean? Like Carrie is so great because there is no question that's a waste of her time. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing I'm going to bring to her. And God, if she thinks it, she never makes me feel that way. Like maybe she does think it, but like she is such a kind person in that she always is like, oh, that's weighing on your heart. Like, let's talk about that. Okay, great. I would like, thank you for welcoming me into that. And like, what a great mentoring quality, because then it gives you permission to like address that thing that's on your heart that God put there clearly, and to journey toward like some sort of a resolution, or like figure out what the next step is with someone that you trust, without feeling like it's a waste of time or it's a dumb question, or like making you feel bad for thinking, you know what I mean? Like it deconstructs all of those things that we, especially as women, but like everyone feels, right? Like what that nagging doubt is, again, in the Ignatian reality, right? That's the evil one, right? Like that's the evil spirit trying to get in and like and devalue your ministry, devalue your vocation, like just trying to gently erode what you know is true and good. And a good mentor like just is the antidote to that. Be like, no, we're going to talk about that. We should, thank you for asking me. Like, let's do that. It's no, I'm never too busy. And you're like, oh,
yeah. Like what I said was important.
Because I think, Nicole, you said it at the top, like the mentor has to be interested and love people, right? But I think they're also, the reason why you seek them out as the mentor is because they're interested and love the work that it is that you're trying to do. So they want more people that are doing great things. And so that's why, like, no, it isn't a bother. Yes, I do want to spend time with you, because if you're asking questions, that means you're interested in improving and becoming better. And you know what I mean? The mentor's going, I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, let's do that.
Yep. Oh my goodness, we blew past our time, but we do have to ask the question.
I got time for you. I always have time. Are you kidding? There is no limit on my time.
See how Nicole mentors us.
Please.
Fully here and present.
Please.
So Nicole, what do you wish you knew when you started out in ministry?
Every time you ask me that question, I'm like, again, that's a 6-hour answer. It's like, oh my God, that list is so long.
All the things.
Honestly, truly though, to what we were just talking about, I guess I wish I had known in my 20s, like that it is, as you said, Christy, anyone who's mentoring you loves you in whatever form that love takes,
Right.
wants you to succeed and wants whatever it is you have in common to flourish and continue. And so it can never be a bother, because I think that, again, when I started ministry, I was in my 20s, and, it was that first step in my vocational journey. And you're like, what the heck am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Like, everything is a mistake. I made all the wrong decisions. Like, everything's on fire here, right? It's that first, like, but it's good, right? Because everyone has felt that. And so, again, I had these great mentors. I think of Gail Bellucci, who was my age when she was doing that, right? She was in her 20s in this incredibly cool role, doing this incredible, like, again, another podcast guest, another time, Gail Bellucci, that's my plug for her and Carrie. Talk to them. They're way cooler than I am, but she's been there, right? And so I wish I had known when I started. There are so many people who have been in your shoes in some way, shape, or form, who desperately desire to share that experience with you and that wisdom, not in a way that they know everything and you, unknowing one, are going to learn, but this idea that, like, they've just lived it. And it's such a gift in life when we have journeyed and when we have experienced joy or hardship, right? When we have suffered, to, like, give that back to somebody and help them suffer even a little bit less, or to share that joy so they get to experience it 10 times more. Like, that is a great gift in life and is a great gift in ministry. And there's so many people who want to do that, who want to share that with you, and who want to accompany you and mentor you and be mentored by you. And, like, just that all of that is graced. And I wish I had just, like, taken more advantage of that, even more than I did, right? And I've always been a mentorship junkie. I've always loved this topic and, like, wanted as many mentors possible, but I wish I had almost had that voice in my head silenced just a smidge more. Just turn that volume down a little bit. Like, you are never bothering them. It is a joy. You are a joy to them, and they're going to be a joy to you. Like, shut up. Just let it happen, girl. Like, that's what I wish I had known.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love that.
Nicole, you're amazing. Thank you for joining us today.
You guys are amazing.
I mean, learned so much. Wrote many notes, and I do hope that you join us again for a 4P, and maybe not so long. Maybe not so long. And everyone, check out Esteem. See if there's a university or college in your area that has Esteem. If not, encourage it with your campus ministers. The journey from college to parish life is an important one. Let us not lose people in that transition because of whatever. 8 words just popped into my mind. I don't like any of them. I'm not trying to put them out there.
Preventable matters. Let's call it preventable
matters. There we go. Thank you, my mentor.
Please.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this podcast on mentorship. If this helps you, help someone at your where you work, or another person that you're working with, please share it. Click like. It really helps us to build our community here. We are here to help you in the field to learn things that we don't generally talk about. So please talk about it. We'll see you the next time on the Catholic Leadership Network podcast. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. Please click the like and subscribe. And if you find this important to the conversations you're having in your local ministry, please share and join the conversation in the comments below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Catholic Leadership Network podcast.